Item 10C, adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with TJKM Transportation Consultants, Inc. for a roadway intersection safety study in an amount not to exceed $51,360.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. The item in front of you tonight is regards to the evaluation of intersection site distances to improve vehicle, traffic, and pedestrian safety. During our last council meeting, staff mentioned that we had received a proposal from an on-call traffic consultant, TJKM, to provide an evaluation of the site distance issue at the intersection, and we're bringing in the item tonight to award this item to the consultant. The current proposal is to perform an initial study of 20 intersections out of 400 that the city has and determine whether there is sufficient intersection site distances and provide recommended measures. The intersection site distance is defined as the distance in which a motorist can see approaching vehicles at the intersection, and this distance should be of sufficient length to allow motorists to anticipate and avoid potential collisions, and should also be free of obstructions such as parked vehicles, hedges, utility poles, or buildings. So insufficient site distance can lead to rear end or angle accidents, since the motorists are unable to see and react to approaching vehicles. So to determine the 20 initial intersections to propose for evaluation, accident history of all the intersections within the city will be collected. The accident history will be reviewed closely with the police department. Then intersections with the history of angle and rear end accidents will be prioritized. And TJKM will also conduct a field observations to assess the intersection conditions. And evaluation criteria will also be developed to identify which improvements will be prioritized for implementations. And the improvements could include removal or modification of obstructions, removal of parking spaces, to install red curbs, installation of traffic control devices, maybe such as stop signs. Funding sources, including grants, will be looked into as well. And based on the prioritization of funding, implementation plan for long-term and short-term will be developed, and a report will be submitted to the city. Once the initial study is completed, staff will share the information with the community through the TSPC and the council as well. And the estimated cost for the initial study is $51,360, and for 20 intersections, which comes out to be about $2,600 per intersection. And once the initial study has been completed, additional intersections can be included at a cost of $1,600 per intersection. And the reason why it's a little bit less is because the preliminary work for collecting and evaluating the information would already be performed. So the cost that they included was for additional work for field investigation and recommending the improvements to implement. The fiscal year 2016-17 CIP includes a budget appropriation in the pedestrian safety and traffic calming program for this work, and it currently has a budget of $248,000, which is sufficient to fund this initial study. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Jimmy?
Yes.
Marty?
I think it's great that we're doing this. This is going to help out with our parking study and problems that we're having in different parts of the city, that when we put the red curb in, we're going to lose parking spaces. May I suggest that not only the locations that we have the accidents, because that is important, because an accident occurred there, but sometimes those accidents are just a freak occurrence or somebody speeding. I would like to see if you could add at the schools, particularly down Sylvan, down over on by Parkside, pretty much all the schools that have a typical intersection as you approach them, having one of those be added for the different schools that we have. I think that would be able to be a template that could be used for the other remaining intersections that are near our schools. And even if we needed to increase the amount of the study costs, I'd be in favor of adding on at that prorated rate more of those intersections.
I think it's not to exceed as it reads now, so.
That's correct.
We'll know if it's going to exceed. Right.
Well, it's only for 20.
Yeah.
But if we needed to add to 25, then I would be in favor of that.
Yeah, you could bring it back. Right.
Through the chair, I'm sort of related question. Initially, I thought it was a lot of money for 20 intersections, but correct me if I'm wrong. They're going to have to screen 400 intersections before they come up with the 20.
That's
And
correct.
so, with my colleague being concerned about vicinity intersections in the vicinity of the school, maybe that's just another criteria, and that gets included in those 20.
Okay. Anything else? Would someone like to introduce the resolution?
I'll introduce.
Vice Mayor Ibarra.
Aye.
Councilmember Marty Medina.
Aye.
Councilmember Rico Medina.
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell. Mayor Ruane.
Aye.